Good evening, everybody. Today is May 19th, and I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we will start with the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And we're going to jump right into some of these resolutions. We've got a lot to go through tonight, and we're going to start with the resolution approving the meeting minutes. Be it resolved to accept minutes for meetings held on April 7th, 2026, April 21st, 2026, and April 24th, 2026. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Be it resolved to accept the town clerk's report. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And before we start, well, we started, but we do have councilperson Lori Osmond on remote. She has a sick family member out of town, and so Lori is participating remotely. Resolution authorizing payment of vouchers. Be it resolved to authorize payment of vouchers in the amount of $221,059.76. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution to hire part-time recreation aide. Be it resolved to hire Gianna Vianello as a part-time recreation aide effective May 19th, 2026. Be it further resolved, Gianna is authorized to work up to 20 hours per week at an hourly rate of $20.92. That's all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution terminating the employment of employee for failure to successfully complete probation and for performance-based and safety-related reasons. Whereas the town board of the town of Woodstock, town board is responsible for the appointment, oversight, and when warranted, termination of town employees. And whereas employee number 709 was hired by the town of Woodstock on 5/13/2025 in the position of heavy motor equipment operator HMEO, with duties that include operating heavy equipment, leading small crews, and maintaining work zones. And whereas on May 14th, 2025, employee number 709's probationary period was set for 1 year. And whereas during the probationary period, employee number 709 has demonstrated performance-based efficiencies, including but not limited to creating an unsafe working environment, poor performance, and other safety concerns. And whereas specific incidents reflecting these concerns include A, on 9/24/2025, a written discipline for speeding in a school zone at 31 miles per hour in a 20-mile-per-hour zone. B, on 12/3/2025, involvement in 2 separate incidents during snow plowing operations, including forcing a vehicle off the road and colliding with a Paraco truck. And C, on 2/5/2026, rolling a backhoe off an embankment, resulting in a total loss of the equipment and personal injury. And whereas these incidents raise significant and ongoing concerns for the safety of employee number 709, his crew members, members of the public, and the town's vehicles and equipment. And whereas the town has compiled and reviewed supporting documentation relating to employee number 709's conduct and performance, including letters, discipline forms, police reports, and medical evaluations. And whereas based on the totality of the record and employee number 709's failure to satisfactorily meet performance and safety expectations during the probationary period, the town board finds that the termination of employee number 709's employment is warranted and in the best interest of the town. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Woodstock hereby terminates the employment of employee number 709 from the position of heavy motor equipment operator, effective, we're gonna fill in May 19th. For failure to successfully complete his 1-year probationary period and for performance-based and safety-related reasons as set forth herein. And be it further resolved that the town supervisor, the interim highway deputy superintendents, I got that backwards, and or their designees are authorized and directed to take all necessary administrative steps to implement this termination, including provision of written notice to employee number 709 and processing of final compensation and return of town property in accordance with town policies and applicable procedures. And be it further resolved that the town clerk is authorized and directed to maintain with the official records of the town the supporting documentation reviewed by the town board, including letters, discipline forms, police reports, and medical evaluations, and to make appropriate notations in the personnel file of employee number 709.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Resolution to amend interim highway superintendent rate. So whereas on March 17, 2026, the town board appointed Heather, Amy, and Cody Chase as interim highway superintendents effective March 28, 2026. And whereas the town board now wishes to amend the temporary stipend previously authorized, and be it further resolved that both employees shall receive a temporary stipend of $500 per person per paycheck effective May 26th and continuing through December 31st, 2026, placing the previously approved amounts. All in favor? And I just want to say that Heather and Cody are amazing. So as soon as they were appointed interim deputy highway superintendents, they came to the supervisor's office. They immediately took some of the biggest concerns that our departments had in working together, things like cost and charges from the highway department back to the town, we were being quoted federal emergency management rates, which was very expensive for the town to pay them to plow the streets and things like that. And so the two of them have been fair, they've been wonderful, and I can say it's a pleasure to work with the two of them. Resolution terminating resolution 337-2011 agreement for out of district water. And so this resolution is going to terminate a resolution that was passed in 2011 that was meant to help some people here in Woodstock, and instead created a bit of a fiasco that a family's been dealing with, where they were considered in the water district and out of the water district at once and being charged accordingly. And so this is a matter that's gone on for years, and it came to my attention a couple of weeks ago. The town board is now aware of it, and I'm proud to say that I'll be reading this one, and hopefully that family gets some sleep tonight. Whereas the town board of the town of Woodstock previously adopted resolution number 337-2011 on November 23rd, 2011, which designated a property located on 30 Nair Street as being within the out of water district. And whereas upon further review and consideration, the town board has determined that it is in the best interest of the town to rescind such designation. And whereas the town board wishes to formally repeal and rescind the prior resolution in its entirety, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Woodstock hereby rescinds resolution number 337-2011, which placed the property located at 30 Nair Street in the out of water district, and be it further resolved that said property shall no longer be designated as part of the out of water district unless and until further action is taken by the town board, and be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby directed to enter this resolution into the official minutes and take any necessary actions to effectuate this rescission. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, resolution to accept the resignation of parking lot attendant. Be it resolved to accept the resignation of Melissa Lobaglio as town of Woodstock parking attendant, and be it further resolved to thank Melissa for the service.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This one is a rather large one. I'm gonna read this, and then if any board member has questions, Dave is actually an expert on Dave knows a lot about EDP and properties and things like that.
Definitely research should be done.
All right, so resolution authorizing waiver of minimum acreage requirement for sale of land to New York City Department of Environmental Protection within the New York City watershed. Whereas the town of Woodstock is partially located within the New York City watershed, and certain lands within the town lie within areas designated by the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, NYC DEP, as priority areas for land acquisition for the protection of New York City's drinking water supply. And whereas NYC DEP operates a land acquisition program through which it acquires watershed lands voluntarily offered for sale by willing landowners to conserve said lands for the purpose of protecting water quality in the New York City water supply. And whereas the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has issued a water withdrawal permit, the City of New York permit number 0-9999-00051/00001, issued December 5, 2025, which renews the authorization for the city to acquire land within the watershed and governs the terms and conditions of such acquisition, the permit. And whereas special condition 9.a of the permit establishes a minimum parcel size of 10 acres for properties located within NYC DEP priority area 2 to be eligible for acquisition through the land acquisition program. And whereas special condition 9.c of the permit provides that a municipality may waive this minimum acreage requirement by passage of a town resolution within 180 days of the permit's issuance, with such waiver applicable to all sub-10 acre parcels located in priority area 2 within the municipality. And whereas the deadline for passage of such a waiver resolution is June 21st, 2026. And whereas the town of Woodstock previously adopted a resolution in 1997 waiving the minimum acreage requirement under the then applicable watershed agreement, demonstrating the town's longstanding support for voluntary land protection within the watershed. And whereas New York City DEP has notified the town that a landowner with a 5 acre property located in priority area 2 has expressed interest in voluntarily selling their property to New York City DEP through the land acquisition program, and that passage of a new waiver resolution is necessary to allow New York City DEP to proceed with such acquisition. And whereas the town board finds that authorizing such a waiver is consistent with the town's interest in supporting voluntary willing seller land conservation within the watershed, protecting water quality and facilitating the orderly administration of the New York City DEP land acquisition program within town boundaries. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Woodstock hereby waives the minimum 10 acre parcel size requirement established under the New York City water withdrawal permit. Permit number 0-9999-00051/00001 issued December 25, 2025. For all sub-10 acre parcels located within New York City DEP priority area 2 in the town of Woodstock. Thereby authorizing the sale of such parcels to New York City DEP through its land acquisition program. And be it further resolved that this waiver is applicable to all eligible sub-10 acre properties within priority area 2 in the town of Woodstock until the current permit expires on December 24th, 2029, and is not limited to any single parcel or transaction. And be it further resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized to transmit a certified copy of this resolution to New York City DEP's Upstate Real Property Services, and to take such further administrative steps as may be necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution.
Second.
Any questions from the town board meeting? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution to hire police dispatcher. Be it resolved to hire Robert Drost as a part-time police dispatcher, and be it further resolved that Robert will work up to 40 hours per pay period.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to accept resignation of police dispatcher. Be it resolved that the town of Woodstock hereby accepts the resignation of police dispatcher Dominic Nichols effective May 19th, 2026. And be it further resolved that the town of Woodstock thanks him for his service and wishes him well in his future endeavors.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to authorize transfer from the codes update reserve, so the 30-day waiting period has passed, and so now we can finalize this resolution. And that's what I'm gonna read right now. Whereas Woodstock Town Board authorized the transfer from the codes update reserve A0240.02600 to fund a code upgrade pursuant to permissive referendum. Whereas the time to file and execute such permissive referendum has expired now, therefore be it resolved to transfer from the code update reserve up to $5,100 to fund code upgrades.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to accept volunteer resignation from CSAC. Be it resolved to accept Robert Wolf's resignation from the Como Stewardship Advisory Committee, and be it further resolved to thank Bob for his service to the town of Woodstock. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we've got a really big resolution coming up next. This resolution has to do with Fenchurch Road. A topic that's been going on for 7 years plus. We've been kind of circling the wagon for a very long time. There are so many people involved in helping to keep this topic alive, to keep it in the public eye. There's so many people that it's hard to name them, but I think some who really do stand out include folks from the DWSP two. So Julia Blaylock, Arlene Weissman, Laura Ricky's on that. The prior town board, Reggie was part of that town board, and as I read through this resolution, everybody will hear what that town board asked for and didn't get. We've had Marcel banging the drum over there, about this topic. And this town board and the public for your trust, in giving me the space to find a legal pathway, working with Dave Gordon, Brea, and, really just outstanding legal minds who have taken a really complicated matter and who, have helped us to give it our best shot at, a path forward.
Well, can we say, and also, I mean, your leadership, because you have taken this bull by the horns and you are digging through it, and as Anila reads the resolution, I think you will find this extremely thorough, extremely well researched, and very solid.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to echo that. I really want to thank everyone involved, and especially for Anula for spending months on this and really bringing it, distilling it into its best possible form, in my belief. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, and I realize that this was really urgent, people have spent years waiting, so I did. Take these first few months really seriously, and so I'm gonna read this, and this is gonna tell the story of Penn Church Road. Where we were, what happened, and where we would like to go. Resolution of the town board of the town of Woodstock authorizing resumption of field testing and water quality monitoring required under resolution 179A-2020. Whereas between December 2019 and July 2020, approximately 2,800 to 3,000 cubic yards of fill that was later determined to be construction and demolition C&D debris was delivered to Penn Church Road, SBL number 26.2-7-41 and number 26-2-7-42 in the hamlet of Shady, Woodstock, New York. That's the site. At the time held or controlled by Vincent Conigliaro as executor of the estate of Salvatore and Louise Conigliaro and Gina Conigliaro, his wife, who reside at and occupy the site. And whereas the fill was dumped in approximately 200 truckloads by Joseph Carolus, a debris contractor already subject to DEC enforcement action for the illegal dumping of solid waste at properties in the town of Saugerties. And whereas in May 2020, the town of Woodstock's building inspector determined the fill at the site was unstable, dumped on an adjoining property and contained C&D debris, the disposal of which was prohibited under the town's solid waste law, chapter 192. And whereas on May 21st, 2020, the town of Woodstock's building inspector and zoning enforcement officer, the ZBO, issued 3 orders to remedy violation at the site. Violation 20-09, citing dumping of unstabilized fill into neighboring properties, and failure to observe proper methods for grading and drainage, and directing that all dumping cease and stabilization plans be provided. Violation 20-10, citing chapter 192-4, illegal dumping of hazardous waste, and directing submission of a bill of lading with proof of clean fill. And violation 20-11, citing chapter 32-13, directing that all work cease. And whereas on May 21st, 2020, the former town supervisor collected a fill sample from the site and submitted it to the DEC Region 3 Solid Waste Program. The resulting C&D waste composition report dated June 16, 2020, confirmed that approximately 11% of the weight of the fill was composed of concrete and glass, asphalt, and coal, slag, ash, brick, and wood in the fill material. And whereas on August 31st, 2020, Dennis M. Larios PE, and principal of Bernier and Larios PC, visited the site in the former town supervisor's presence and issued a written engineering report dated September 1, 2020. The Bernier and Larios report. The Bernier and Larios report found that the fill was of dubious quality, was placed to create a steep embankment near the westerly property line, that a slope blowout and failure had already occurred with potential for additional failures, and that the slope threatened the safety of the adjacent property at 59 Reynolds Lane, SBL number 26-2-7-8, the Amy property. The report recommended that the site owners be required to develop a slope stabilization plan by a licensed engineer with a factor of safety of at least 1.5, accurate cross sections, calculations, and erosion control measures. Whereas the Bernier and Larios report expressly reserved the environmental quality of the fill as a separate issue to be addressed in a second letter that was never written. And whereas on October 20th, 2020, the town board of the town of Woodstock duly passed resolution number 179A-2020, test water and soil at property on Reynolds Lane. That's called the monitoring resolution, citing violations of the town's solid waste law, chapter 192, 4B and C, and the emergency action authority of the town's zoning law, chapter 260, 99G, which directs as follows. The town would hire and pay for an independent qualified testing agency, not affiliated with any town employee, to collect and analyze water samples on the adjacent property at the Amy property, and then quarterly for 1 year and annually for up to 3 years thereafter. The town would hire and pay for an independent qualified testing agency to complete testing of the fill at the site in accordance with the Bernier and Larios report. C. The Woodstock Environmental Commission, WEC, or a designated member would review the status of all environmental reports and tests for at least 3 years and make further recommendations to the town board as needed. D. Fill and water testing would continue on the same quarterly and annual schedule by the same agency. And E. The ZEO would keep all test results on file for at least 5 years. The monitoring resolution also cited the HydroQuest hydrology report dated August 26, 2020. The HydroQuest report, prepared by Paul A. Rubin, professional geologist, hydrogeologist of the HydroQuest Environmental Consulting, which found that the fill had been placed up gradient from the potable water well at the Amy property, and recommended sample collection by an independent qualified professional and testing by a New York State certified laboratory for volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and semi-volatile organic compounds, SVOCs, metals and asbestos. And whereas in February of 2022, Gina Conigliaro and Joseph Parolis pleaded guilty to criminal charges of illegal dumping under chapter 192 in connection with the material deposited at the site, and each fined $1,500. The maximum penalty then available under that provision. Similar charges against Vincent Conigliaro were dismissed. And whereas on April 27, 2022, town wastewater staff collected a water sample from the Amy property and submitted it to Environmental Lab Works Inc. Between April 28th and June 6, 2022, Environmental Lab Works issued 3 reports on that sample, covering bacteriological, chemical, inorganic, organic, radiological, and other parameters, collectively the 2022 well water reports. And whereas the April 28th, 2022 bacteriological report indicated that coliform bacteria was present in the sample and expressly stated that the water was not of satisfactory sanitary quality pursuant to New York State Department of Health regulations. The May 20th, 2022 chemical report revealed that iron and odor exceeded maximum contaminant level, MCL, arsenic and manganese were detectable but below MCL, and volatile organic compounds, regulated pesticides, PCBs, and asbestos were all below detection limits. The June 6, 2022 radiology reports found all parameters well below applicable MCLs. None of these reports include the comprehensive analysis for semi-volatile organic compounds, including the full polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon panel necessary to detect benzo K, I can't say that word, and related carcinogens, and specifically directed by the HydroQuest report and the monitoring resolution. And whereas the presence of coliform bacteria in a down gradient well demonstrates that the well is vulnerable to surface and subsurface infiltration, which is the precise pathway by which contaminants present at the site could reach the potable water supply. And whereas on November 7th, 2022, Vincent Canigliaro applied for a building permit pursuant to Town Code Chapter 79 for dirt removal and redistribution for the site. Attached to the application was a one-page drawing denominated Plan E 10 Church Road Soil Cleanup, hereinafter called Plan E. And whereas Plan E entails the on-site moving of dirt, the sifting and sorting of the usable fill from the C&D material, and testing of the fill, but not remediation of found chemical contamination. And whereas on December 7th, 2022, the former town supervisor, the town engineer, and the highway department agreed to Plan E without authorization of or approval by the town board. And whereas the town of Woodstock issued building permit number 23-147 on April 13th, 2023 for remediation of fill violation for engineer specifications and town board approval. And whereas in Amy versus Town of Woodstock et al. Index number EF 2023-1411, Supreme Court, Ulster County, Gandon J, December 8, 2023. The Supreme Court of the State of New York vacated and annulled building permit 23-147, holding that the town's determination was an error of law since the town issued the permit in violation of Town Code Chapter 79. The court based its findings on the inadequacy of Plan E, since the court found that Plan E did not contain contour markings delineating the existing and proposed landscape or an estimate of the amount of material to be displaced based on a cross-section of the fill as required, nor any details of the erosion control. Further, Plan E provided for on-site processing and sorting in violation of town law. Whereas in January 2023, Quality Engineering Solutions and Technologies, Quest MT, conducted an independent soil sampling examination of the site and documented elevated levels of lead and benzofluorethene, which is classified by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency as a probable human carcinogen. And whereas in November 2024, John A. Conrad, PT, Senior Geologist of PPE, New York City, conducted an inspection and soil sampling of the site on behalf of the Amy's, documented significant quantities of CMD debris remaining in the fill material, confirming that the sifting and sorting conducted under Plan E did not result in full removal of the illegal fill. Whereas the WEC separately issued formal findings that Plan E did not constitute adequate remediation at the site. A retaining wall at the site failed and caused a landslide onto the Amy property. The Amy's have been advised not to consume their well water and have sued multiple parties, including the town in civil court. The town has been dismissed as a defendant in the Amy litigation on procedural and jurisdictional grounds. Whereas the town has not yet implemented the 2020 monitoring resolution or the recommendations in the Bernier and Larios report, and whereas independent scientific experts have each concluded that contamination concerns at the site remain unresolved. Paul A. Rubin of HydroQuest Environmental Consulting, Tivoli, New York, Johnny Conrad of PVE, New York City, Catherine B. PhD at Mid Hudson Geosciences in Clintondale, New York, and Robert Wolf, environmental engineer and former WEC member. And whereas the site is situated upgradient from and in close proximity to the aquifer, which water is drawn by the town of Woodstock Public Water Supply and other private wells, 2 streams are located close to the site, with 1 stream in proximity to the berm where fill was relocated. The documented presence of probable human carcinogens and remaining C&D debris at the site poses a credible and ongoing risk of contamination to that aquifer, to those streams, and to private wells in the immediate vicinity. And whereas the town has authority to undertake the actions authorized herein under chapters 36, 79, 192, and 260 of the town code. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board finds as follows. The monitoring resolution has never been implemented in accordance with its terms. And the chapter 192 violations cited in the monitoring resolutions remain unabated, and the town's obligations under the monitoring resolution remain in full force and must be discharged. and the town board never approved Plan E or any other remediation plan for the site. And protection of the public health, welfare, and safety require the town to accurately and fully determine the extent of remaining contamination at the site and the threat, if any, to the down gradient aquifer and the water supply. And under the foregoing circumstances, the public and all involved parties are best served by the town's retention of a qualified environmental engineer to execute the required testing, evaluate any remaining threats to the aquifer and the water supply, and recommend appropriate remedial measures. And be it further resolved that the town board of the town of Woodstock hereby reaffirms the monitoring resolution and all obligations imposed therein, including independent field testing, independent water testing at the Amy property, quarterly and annual retesting, web oversight, and CEO record keeping. And be it further resolved that the town board further finds that the former town supervisor's unilateral agreement to Plan E, undertaken in direct contravention of the monitoring resolution's mandate and without town board authorization, did not satisfy and cannot be deemed to have satisfied any obligation of the town under that resolution. And be it further resolved that to fulfill the mandate of the monitoring resolution, the town board hereby authorize and directs the town supervisor, the new town supervisor, in consultation with town council and special counsel to interview and recommend for retention by town board a disinterested, independent, and qualified environmental engineer, the engineer, to perform the work described herein. The engineer shall have no prior involvement in any aspect of the 10 Church Road matter, no ownership or affiliation with any company previously engaged by the town in connection with the site, and no relationship or affiliation with any current or previous town employee or officer. Be it further resolved that the scope of the engineer's engagement shall include, at minimum, the following tasks: review and analysis of existing and known testing of the fill or water downstream of the site, including the 2022 well water reports, prior soil sampling reports, including the January 2023 Quest and T report and the November 2024 Conrad/PVE debris report, the Bernier and Larios report, the HydroQuest report, June 2020 DEC C&D waste composition report, engineering reports, groundwater testing results, DEC correspondence, and all prior remediation plans and assessments. Determination whether entry upon the site is necessary to allow for sampling and testing to fully characterize the contamination. If such entry is necessary, preparation of an affidavit or professional certification suitable for submission in support of an application for an administrative inspection warrant, summarizing the technical basis for additional testing. If an administrative inspection warrant issues, execution of necessary soil and groundwater sampling, an analysis program at the site, including sampling locations, depths, and parameters to be approved by the town board, with particular attention to subsurface and pulverized material, lead, polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons, including benzo, PFAS, PFOS, volatile and semi-volatile organic compounds, and metals, and any other contaminant or constituent that the engineer shall designate. Updated water sampling at the well at the Amy property, conducted by a New York State certified laboratory, testing for VOCs, SVOCs, metals, asbestos, PFAS, PFOS, and coliform bacteria in coordination with the Amy property owners. Should the Amy property owners prohibit follow-up testing, identify other downstream sites for water sampling, or if Amy property testing is absolutely necessary, coordination with municipal council on the preparation of an affidavit or professional certification suitable for submission in support of an application for an administrative inspection warrant summarizing the technical basis for additional testing and the professional opinion that such entry and testing is required. Preparation of a detailed report of findings, including delineation of the horizontal and vertical extent of the contamination at the site and in surrounding properties and groundwater, with a specific assessment of the risk to the municipal aquifer, nearby streams and private wells. Identification and evaluation of remediation alternatives, including full excavation and off-site disposal, in-place treatment, and longstanding monitoring, with itemized cost estimates for each. Recommendations for necessary interim protective measures to prevent further mitigation of contaminants pending full remediation. A final report suitable for use in legal proceedings and agency submissions, together with a summary accessible to lay readers. Appearance before the town board at regular intervals to report on the status of the foregoing tasks. And to respond to questions from board members and members of the public. And be it further resolved that should the engineer recommend such testing, the town board hereby authorizes and directs town council, with the support of the engineer, to prepare and file an application for an administrative inspection warrant in a court of competent jurisdiction directed to Vincent Conigliaro as executor of the estate and as occupant of the site, and to Gina Conigliaro as occupant. Prior to filing any such application, the town supervisor shall send written notice to Vincent Conigliaro in both capacities, and Gina Conigliaro requesting voluntary consent to access the site for environmental testing. If consent is not granted within 10 business days of such notice, town council is authorized to proceed with the warrant application without further town board action. And be it further resolved that should the engineer determine access to additional private property wells are recommended, town board hereby authorizes and directs town council, with the support of the engineer, to prepare and file appropriate applications for administrative inspection warrants in a court of competent jurisdiction. Prior to filing any such application, the town supervisor shall send written notice to said property owners requesting voluntary consent to access the site for environmental testing. If consent is not granted within 10 business days of such notice, town council is authorized to proceed with the warrant application without further town board action, and will notify the town board as soon as practical. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Hey, I don't have to talk anymore. Public be heard. And public be heard is about us listening, for me, thank goodness. Because I kind of lost my voice. And I second. Excuse me. You know what, I gotta think of some reasons.
Unanimous.
It was unanimous. So turn it over to Megan.
Yay? Yeah. So I think one little hodgepodge, there's none of this dense as that. One thing that's come to my attention each time is that the Camille property is not marked with survey markers. And there've been several encroachments over the years, quarrels. And trying to get a map of this property was a major challenge, and we got one by a private donor giving a map to the Historical Society, since I volunteered there. He's like, oh, look, a real map. So I think it's crazy. If it was my property, or your property, or anybody's property, you would want your property marked. So, you know, I'm not saying do this tomorrow, but it'd be nice to do it in 2026. And then the other completely different subject is I was on the fee committee from 2017 until this last January. Gathered a whole lot of information, and I'm sure I'm not unique, by which I mean many committees gather a lot of information. Where should that information go? I've asked if you're I don't know, literally, don't know.
It's, I think,
I mean, so that it's
Yeah.
available
Yeah.
to generate,
yeah.
what I'm saying, not, you know, give it to the current chair or give it to committee. But, you know, just in general,
I'll get back to you on
Yeah.
that, thank you.
I would love if the town enforced signage, it hasn't done it for decades. And. I spoke to you with an email, about town maintenance things. You know, basically our youth center wouldn't look as the way it looks now, if it had been maintained, and the town doesn't seem to have. What a homeowner would have, you know, like when they decided on house this year, next year's the other side or whatever. So I think it'd be nice in general. For some town board member to pick up the idea of looking at maintenance both of the buildings. And of the trees on the property, like when you walk out the door here, you look up and see all this dead wood, that giant maple. It's because nobody looks. And then there's probably the most controversial thing I brought along, but I am a very visual person. And an artist also, I need to see things to really have them go in. So I decided to take a look at 212, concerning the potential bike path. And create some visuals and brought them to you all to look at your region. As opposed to, explaining all of it. And Lori isn't here, so you know when I give the other copy. Here, yeah, and she can put it in their laps. Basically, I'm not going to all the speech that I'm just gonna say, take a look at the pictures. It shows what 17 feet is gonna look like.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm Tana O'Sullivan. I live at 37 Eastwood Drive. I've been an active participant in public review of the Xena development application to modify and extend Eastwood Drive for a 30-lot subdivision in the town of Ulster. I'm here tonight to inform the board about the beginning of a concerning pattern of intimidation and harassment directed at me by Xena Development LLC in connection with their application pending before the Woodstock Planning Board. I did document the incidents in a detailed formal notice I submitted yesterday to the town supervisor, the town attorney, and the chief of police. On May 8th, I emailed my last letter to both town planning boards and this town board. In it, I included several photographs about the parts of Eastwood Drive that the developers are unable to widen due to the wetlands, which is roughly the first of a mile. And I raised a number of engineering and safety related questions. I believe the safety and engineering issues I've raised are valid, hence the swift retaliatory response. Hours after that letter went out, I received an email from Xena Development's principals threatening to press charges against my neighbor, Zoe Keller, for accompanying me on a walk on Eastwood Drive in April during the annual amphibian migration near the wetlands, when one of the photos that had been taken that I included in my letter. 4 days later, on May 12th, when the Ulster Planning Board indicated it would issue a negative declaration at their June meeting, Xena Development filed a police complaint against me, alleging that I trespassed on Eastwood Drive, which is the road I live on, and to which I hold a lawful easement that predates Xena Development's purchase of the road. They also filed a trespassing complaint against my guest, Zoe Keller. On the 14th, the Woodstock Police came to speak to me in our respective homes to Zoe. I have to praise Officer Haynes, who was friendly and a perfect gentleman. On the 15th, I received a questionable invoice for $1,040, allegedly for road maintenance costs with the threat of legal action if I do not pay them. They copied their attorney, Cuddy and Fetter, on that communication. I contacted two of my neighbors for their thoughts, but apparently I'm the only one receiving invoices and threatening emails. Lastly, their May 15th email stated that I am not permitted recreational walking on Eastwood Drive or to inspect the surrounding area and must limit my use of the road to access my house only, lest they seek all available remedies under the law. In other words, if I send any more pictures documenting safety concerns about their plans for Eastwood Drive to the town of Woodstock, they will take legal action against me. I'm not here to escalate a conflict. I'm here because this town should be aware that residents participating lawfully in the planning process are now being subjected to legal threats, intimidation tactics, police complaints, and restrictive reinterpretations of long-standing easement rights. I trust you. We'll take this seriously. I thank you. Thank you.
Marcel?
Good evening, everybody. Marcel Nagel. Many of you may know me from my work regarding Pinchurch Road. I got involved in that 4 years ago. I've dedicated a huge portion of my life for it. It's been a long fight. Last fall, I was able to get the Woodstock Environmental Commission to reopen the door to 10 Church Road. And they deserve a lot of credit for doing that. They sent some communications to the town board. The town board now, you heard the resolution, is finally taking what I feel is the proper action. The Woodstock Environmental Commission and this entire town board deserves a lot of credit for that. They're brave people. Anula, you're leading a new board. You're the change, hopefully, we've all been looking for, and I commend you for that.
I'm not faint, so I'm sorry.
And the reason she says that is because Anula and I often spar. And we're both strong people. Well, I believe we're finally headed in the same direction.
Thank you.
It's long overdue. I commend you all and thank you.
Mark.
Hi, everybody. I'm sure you recognize my name, Marcia Zwilling. I've been very vocal about the current dot plan for 17-foot wide bike lane on 212. I'm happy to tell you, I've written my last email, sent you all the petition, the signatures from the petition. And I pretty much said everything I can say about it. I did have a really positive meeting with Howard on Sunday. And we talked about it, and I realized that what's making this 17 feet is the big grass median. And why do we need that? Because that's not gonna protect bicyclists and hikers, and somebody text driving could go right through it. Get rid of that, put a
Barrier.
what?
Barriers.
Barrier, like I can't believe I'm going to that. You know, rail, guardrail, thank you, guardrail, instead of median, line up a guardrail. That will protect everybody, that will bring down the 17-foot considerably. And if you got Dot's permission, maybe it could be a town project where artists would paint the guardrail along the bike path. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I really think you can find a compromise, you know, and I appreciate you so much that you are getting suggestions and that you're listening, which is great. That's all I ever really wanted, was people to just know about the project and be able to offer suggestions. So I hope that this suggestion is a pathway to a compromise. So thank you all.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Brooks and I'm here tonight with a fellow parent whose preschooler attends First Steps with my son here in Woodstock.
Hi, I'm Amy Soazzo, and I wanted to raise an issue that I'm not sure many people are aware of, that affects many working families here in the Woodstock, West Hurley area, and needs attention now. When Woodstock Elementary closes in spring of 2028, unfortunately, we won't be losing just our school. We will also be losing access to local before and after school care for children in grade K through 5. There's already a gap there today. Once children leave pre-K and onto your district, many families effectively lose their local wraparound care options. Personally, I'm scared for September as we have uncertainty, we have no wraparound care, and I'm a teacher that works in this service.
And for those unfamiliar with the term wraparound care, this means care before school starts and after school ends, because of course most jobs don't start at 8:30 and end at 3:15 and follow normal school hours. So programs like First Steps have been supporting families in our community for over 30 years through the earliest years, and then thanks to Pat Acker and our youth center, children ages 11 and up have aftercare school options here in Woodstock. But for younger school age children K through 5, there is currently no district provided wraparound care in the Woodstock and West Hurley area.
So the closest options that are available for our community are located in Phoenicia right now. Many parents that are living or working in Woodstock, West Hurley, there's nothing. I commute to Kingston, as I said, as a teacher. My husband works locally, but we cannot add an extra 30 to 40 minutes or longer to our commute, doing different schedules. Even if Rapid Brown Care is eventually consolidated at the main campus, it still is a significant burden for working parents who don't have flexibility in their schedule. I have a certain time that I have to be at work. And it makes it difficult to pick up kids again at the end of the day. What do we need to fill this gap? We need a location and a partner willing to help provide programming and complete licensing processes. Ontario buses will transport children to any childcare site within the district lines. We have already explored partnerships with local churches, the YMCA. Even wonder if Woodstock Elementary itself could temporarily be used for this purpose while its future is being determined. It would be sad to see the building site idle for years while families are struggling with the need for childcare that exists right now. This kind of childcare solution can take 1 to 2 years to organize. So a permit needs to be implemented soon. So we need to start as soon as possible. I already begun raising this issue with the Ontario School District. I spoke before the Board of Education. I've written letters to the board, superintendent, and the Woodstock Elementary principal. This concerns our families now and not just after Woodstock closes. So we believe it extends beyond the schools themselves and requires a broader community response and help.
And we'll just close by asking the board to consider this need in your future planning and help support any possible options. We're also asking community members to help us identify resources and solutions. We have a petition available. We're looking for people who want to join and help, and we'll be sharing more information on how to get more involved soon. Thank you.
First town board meeting of the year. How are we all doing?
You'll fix that.
I'm here on behalf of the tree committee. And I just, first of all, I wanted to thank you for the resolution you read about the shaded dump situation. It's something a lot of people in town have been very concerned about for a long time. I'm glad to see the board can act on something as serious as that. I'm here to suggest another resolution, which will require the board to act, and that resolution is to call for a pause on the DOT planning for the Bearsville bike path. I don't know if the public is aware of this, but the DOT is working on engineering plans at this time. And that the grant application from Complete Streets for $6 million with a match from the town of like it's the 1.7 is for construction. Now, the time to for the community to have gotten together to plan this project has passed. The DOT has informed the town and people like myself and the Complete Streets that they're done listening unless they get a request from the town just to pause the planning that they are currently working on. I'm requesting this because I believe it would allow the community to come back together, which they should have done in the early planning stages of this project, but for some reason they didn't. It wasn't the lack of trying on the part of the tree committee. I believe that Complete Streets has, they have joined they are a national group. I don't know if you're aware of Complete Streets is part of a national franchise that came out of the smart road movement. And there are certain principles that Complete Streets agreed to adhere to, and one of those was community involvement and bringing all stakeholders to the table at the very early stages of the planning process, so that they could ensure what's called a buy-in to the project, as opposed to opt out. Okay, so currently, and with the petition that you've been given, and what I'm sure you're all hearing is that there's a lot of concern in the community over this project. The answer and the solution. I mean, you're hearing, you're hearing a lot of ideas, but the actual solution is to call a pause to the planning so that the town can regroup. We can have the meetings that were required that we never held. Bring in the stakeholders, including the people who are facing eminent domain and possible loss of their private property. And let's get a solution to this situation that
Thank you, Mike.
that makes everybody happy,
Thank you.
including you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I relinquished my time, it's okay. But one thing I would like to say is, what a difference this board is making already. To the lesson.
Hi. How you doing? So I'm gonna kind of pause a little bit of my commentary, which might be a little tough for me, but we'll do it. Cause I think I'm the last person on the list, is that correct? I think I have something a little more. Not important, but a really good way to end this really great meeting. And it has to do with this banner right here, everybody can see the banner.
No.
You can stand up if you want, see this banner. And then behind, there's like these balloons back here. Well, 3 minutes to it, and there's balloons back here. And then the balloons, there's like this song that happens. And if you join me for this song that happens. I mean, we don't have like the wonderful Stevie Wonder that we his version, which is my favorite. Like Beatles, there's no Beatles left, but happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Oh, happy birthday to you. Happy So this cake, Anula is vegan, and this cake is specifically from Perfect Place Sweet Carissa's. So we brought cookies for everybody else from the dice scenes, so they're good too. But we're gonna leave it to either share or not share, but this becomes it. And she can also eat it. I'll give you guys up here and say that. So we got some stuff for everybody.
So hold on. Yes,
So I'm all done.
So before we wrap this meeting up, thank you, wow. But I do wanna mention our neighbor, Shan Bacon. So I had my notes down and I left them in the office across the way. But Shan Bacon actually donated some DVD racks to us. And it's really important, so there were 2 reporters and something else, and anyway, so it's a player and two players, 1 report, thank you. And that's actually a really big deal, and our TV station, our Ellen and Danny are super excited over there, and so a big shout out to Shan Bacon and Neighbors Helping Neighbors. With that, I make a motion to end this meeting.